Are aliens here with us on Earth? The Greys, the Reptilians, the UFO sightings, the government, the Anunnakis, Pleiadian Nordics, the Paleos, Pyramids, Stonehenge, Easter Island, Machu Picchu, Puma Punku, Buzla Monument, or however you pronounce that, the ancient cave cities of Cappadocia, Turkey, the Mesopotamian art, the ones who live underground or underwater, and the ones who created humanity. So, are they real, and are they here? First, let's define alien. The Oxford definition for this context is relating to or denoting being supposedly from other worlds, extraterrestrial. Extraterrestrial definition is of or from outside the Earth or its atmosphere, a hypothetical or fictional being from outer space, especially an intelligent one. So this definition means an alien is a biological species which originates outside of Earth, whether it's carbon-based life like us, or silicon-based, or ammonia-breathing, or helium blobs, or living magnetic fields existing within gas giants who have neural radio wave network hive mind thoughts that they use to communicate. Whatever it is, if they move around and exist within space-time, they live with the same basic constraints as us. There are basics that we know as humans. We know of gravity, light, time, distance, mass, and elements in our periodic table, atoms, molecular theory, vibrations. There are a lot of stuff that we know through math, physics, chemistry, and biology that is like 100% certain. Can we learn more about it and expand on what we know? Yeah, of course. But we do have a pretty good base understanding of how things work. So let's quickly get some pseudoscience out of the way. Anything that doesn't play by the same laws of reality that we do are not aliens. They are omnipotent, trans-dimensional entities, demons, ghosts, spirits, gods, angels, or devs of our simulation. So I want to get that out of the way. If someone wants to make an argument that aliens don't play by our rules of logic and physics, and, the physical reality that we live in, then that's not an alien. That's something else. And we're not talking about them in this video. So going back to what we know, it's often quoted that we don't know anything, and thus the aliens are so advanced and intelligent that it's outside of our comprehension. This may be true, but if they are real aliens based on the definition I provided, we know a few very concrete logical facts about the universe. So if aliens are living in the same universe and same physical reality as us, that means they still play by the same laws of science that we play by. There is a rule book that they have to follow with us. I'm going to go over 3 of the most ridiculous theories before we get into more sensible ones. For this example, the closest habitable planet we know of is Proxima Centauri b, which is just over 4 light years away. So let's pretend aliens are actually in the government here on Earth. Let's entertain that this is true. So how did we get here? Let's reverse engineer how the aliens got here. And I'm starting this off with 3 Clarke-Tech theories. Clarke-Tech being the following laws written by Arthur C. Clarke. This image is taken from Isaac Arthur's video. I'm not going to read it out. If you want to learn more about Clarke-Tech and theories like this and technologies, go check out Isaac Arthur's channel. He's a big inspiration of what I do here. So the first 3 is teleportation. Oh, we just teleport here instantly with thought. So actually, researchers can pick a nerve on your arm or leg, send a very small electrical zap to it, not enough to hurt, just enough to activate the nerve ending. And they have sensors that detect how long it takes for the nerve response to arrive from the brain. This is just one example. I know they have other gadgets where they measure your brain activity with scanners. I don't know all of them, I don't know the methods, but I know a few, and it's enough to obviously show that we can measure the speed of thought. So this speed of human thought is up to 100 meters per second, which is actually really fast considering our body size. But the speed of light is 300 million meters per second. To put that into perspective, this fastest spaceship humans have ever built was NASA's Parker Solar Probe, which has a top speed of 692,000 kilometers an hour, which is 192,000 meters per second, a bit more. The spaceship is 1,900 times faster than the speed of thought, and the spaceship is only 0.06% of the speed of light. So if you're teleporting at the speed of thought across 4 light years, that's going to take close to 100,000 years. Also, if you aren't a demon, you can't just teleport your physical molecules. Even if we're playing Portal, you still need to spawn both endpoints. If we think about it realistically, your molecules have to be teleported with some sort of logistics. Molecular structure has to be scanned, cloned, and reconstructed at the endpoint that you teleported to. The endpoint to where you are teleporting to needs to have data on what you are and what it's reconstructing when you appear there. To allow you to transfer over to that location, you need some sort of cache of elements or materials already at the spot that you are teleporting to. So with the power of thought alone, teleportation could be possible in an obscure wizardly way, but it would be very far from instant, and it would be dangerous, and you need to build out some sort of architecture that's physical that would enable you to do such a thing. I would argue a smarter idea instead of this is that instead of teleporting, they tap into our minds and move us with a remote control session. Kind of like RDPing into a computer, which again, radio energies only go at the speed of light because the mass is 0. So there would be insane amounts of latency in their controls. If they did something like pick up a fork, they would see the results of them picking up that fork 4 years from the event. The only way they could go faster than the speed of light is through some wizard alien speculative tech where you invert mass, and thus being negative mass could go faster, which brings us to wormholes. Imagine using a wormhole as a network router. Now that's some network engineering and some crazy bandwidth. So let's talk about wormholes. And no, not the Warhammer 40k Rift, just the vanilla wormholes, as it's the second ridiculous theory out of the 3. The idea of folding paper in half, sticking your pencil through it. Before we get into wormholes, let's talk about the human body. Astronauts in space, even after a few months, can experience minor issues in health. And after a year or more, the changes become noticeable, and it progresses as time moves on. So the biological body isn't meant to live in space, meaning that any alien that wants to traverse space also has to accomplish bioengineering and possibly even cybernetic enhancements to alter their bodies to survive the conditions of space travel. So let's forget about the insane amount of energy and resources that it would even take to spawn in a wormhole. We are sending a spaceship with humans through space-time curvature. How the hell are we gonna guarantee that we come out of the other side of that wormhole still intact and not as a human soup in a crunched, randomized hunk of materials that our spaceship was made out of? So using a wormhole as a network router is more realistic than using it as a teleport hole for objects. I'm paraphrasing here. Einstein says space-time can bend and curve theoretically. For a wormhole, in order to open one and keep it open, you need negative energy dense substance with negative pressure, which means the energy has to be less than empty space. This is the same idea of physics that you would need to invert mass and give negative weight to an object. I'm sure someone has a whole video explaining all the details, but if you look into it, look at the formula that Einstein came up with, and you'll realize the type of energy required to power one of these things is insanely high tech, and you would need multi-planetary scale mining operation with Dyson spheres and more to generate anywhere near the amount of power that it would even to even think about opening one of these for even a split second, let it alone for years or more to keep a stable network connection through it. So let's ditch those ideas and talk about spaceships going the speed of light, which is the third ridiculous theory. Okay, extremely unrealistic because, and again, in order to reach speed of light, you need to have zero mass. So how are you going to have a spaceship full of fuel or full of technology that generates its own energy and also have aliens in it? If you thought being in space for 1 year is bad for your health, imagine if it was possible to bring your mass to zero with some gadget. Again, the gadget also has to wrap itself into the zero mass. Imagine how unhealthy that would be, and now survive 4 years while your spaceship goes to its destination. To achieve that, you need some wizard levels of bioengineering and cybernetic implants to make you survive something that even just theoretically. Not to mention, even a speck of dust in space can damage your spaceship if you drive through it at a speed of light. So you'll need some sort of plasma energy shield generators, which also need to be zero mass. So as our reality requirement list continues on, we can see how increasingly improbable this is. These are all the apex god-like hacker tier aliens, maybe possible in obscure speculative quantum theory, but pretty much impossible in real life application. But let's just pretend it's possible. Let's just pretend there was an alien civilization so advanced that they can either A, teleport, or B, build wormholes, or C, even just have a spaceship go the speed of light. You really think they would spend all that time and energy to come to Earth to just take over the banking system, start CNN News, and spread some political misinformation campaigns? Or even better, they had all that tech just to move a couple fucking rocks around like Stonehenge? That's like Elon Musk going to Saturn to build an Anunnaki and leaving without another trace. If you thought the Tesla protests were bad, I'm sure the planet wouldn't be too happy about him draining half the resources on Earth and spending trillions of dollars to accomplish a trip to Saturn for such a petty motivation. Let's play the devil's advocate and say, yes, they came here to play mundane politics because they are slave overlord hobbyists. I would say the 3 examples of how they got here isn't possible. You know what would have been way easier than spawning a wormhole? They could have just taken people or animals from their own planet, genetically modify them to act and look however they want, and terraform a planet beside their planet to stick them on, and then go rule them there. If you were advanced enough to teleport, engineer biology, terraform planets, do cybernetic augmentation, build massive solar system-wide industrial factories in their own solar system to support the insane tech they're building, and the goal is to just manipulate a civilization for fun, power, or social experiment, or whatever, then the lowest effort, highest control option is just terraform planets beside you. Engineer animals on those worlds to enslave. You avoid massive time delays. And if they really did come to Earth, and that's their hobby, they would have colonized our entire solar system, with every planet being its own little slave political hobby farm. And we would see that. And the technology that they need to get here, it would be so trivial for them to build out our entire solar system, so for every planet to be their little hobby farm. Okay, so the more sensible theory is they didn't come to Earth to manipulate us, but they're here just studying us like the zoo experiment. This, I would argue, is a more sane, level-headed take for your average sci-fi enjoyer. So let's talk about that. Let's scrap the unrealistic ideas and build out a real plan that might actually be possible. I'm going to approach this using an engineering design mindset. Let's remain very generous and say that the closest planet to us in the habitable zone is Proxima Centauri b, which is just over 4 light years away. So the last, 60 decades, we've had high-strength space observation stations scanning the skies. And now we have an AI that speeds up the process, and we even have civilians who can just buy a really good telescope for a couple grand off Amazon. Let's just say everybody totally missed this solar system with an advanced life of alien race that can come over here. With our naked eye, we can see Alpha Centauri system's stars, which is 4.37 light years away. Most amateur telescopes on Amazon that are like a couple $100 can see way further than that. You really think nobody would have seen an advanced alien civilization just 4 light years away? We know humans' fastest probe went a speed of 692,000 kilometers an hour. So let's be very generous to the advanced high-tech alien civilization and say they have ships that can fly consistently at 10 million kilometers an hour. That's insanely fast. Even at that speed, it would take 108 years to travel 1 light year. So it would take 432-ish years if you went full throttle the entire time with 0 issues. Okay, but hold on. We need fuel for these. We know NASA's space probes are resource hogs. So something that goes 10 million kilometers an hour is going to be using some insane amount of resources. That means the aliens need to build refueling planets and repair stations everywhere along the way. You have to genetically modify your biology and maybe even add cybernetic implants to survive in space for that long. And you have to build out an infrastructure to make a trek like this. And to build and plan all of this out, you have to remember the galaxy isn't static. All the planets are moving, the galaxy spins, there's massive objects in space that create gravity wells, planets drift off all the time. We have to account for all of these things when calculating the trajectory of the road. So when we plan to build these proxy space stations along the way on other planets, we have to make sure we pick planets that aren't going to be like Pluto and drift off before we can accomplish our project. So if it were to take 432 years to get to Earth, first a few refueling and maintenance stations need to be built along the way. Let's be very generous and say we only need 1 station per light year. Okay, so that means you're building 3 stations with Earth being the final light year and not needing that last one for the final stretch. It's going to take a few 100 years to even just get logistics shipped out to these proxy worlds. And they need to be maintained. And they also need to have resources nearby for fueling, energy, materials, and labor to be there. Now, if you want to add aliens for labor, those aliens need to be bioengineered or cybernetically altered with implants to survive on terraformed planets so far away. And you have to now worry about what happens when those aliens get to those planets and want to start a rebellion or civil wars of their own, like the Covenant from Halo. And if they're light year plus away, then it's going to take like a years to communicate with them. It's going to be a year one way, and then for them to respond a year back. And really think about it, like if this is going to be like a 500 plus few 100 year project, think about like a politician on Earth who made some project 500 years ago. Is anyone really still following that? No. So you really need to like how like you gotta give him credit, right? Like you gotta get your civilization coordinated for 500 plus years to build all this shit out. So anyways, it's gonna take a lot more than 500 years. I'm just saying, even just 500 years That's an insane amount of time. Because also terraforming the planets would have required an insane amount of prerequisite work that would have had to been done an insanely long time ago. Terraforming a planet in Star Trek, in some episodes, happened within a day with the Genesis device. But let's be honest, that is a plot device, it's just for the story. So I want to use Warhammer 40k's lore, where it takes hundreds to thousands of years, which is a lot more realistic. Meaning 3 planets had to have been picked at minimum, but to account for planetary drift in the galaxy, aliens would have to create more than 3 for redundancy to ensure this plan would hold up, to ensure they didn't waste a bunch of resources and the relay stations, planets, end up just drifting away. Meaning these aliens would have been planning to visit Earth over thousands of years ago, and they would have already had to have had terraforming technology when they found us. If they didn't, they would have been planning for even longer than thousands of years ago, in which case, look at where humans were back then. And when they were looking at humans back then, what did they see? And what would have been like the goal to come here? Would it be the same as now? So you could use robotics and AI to do the work instead of humans or aliens. However, we already know on Earth the insane amount of resources that are consumed by something simple like ChatGPT. Data centers are absolute resource beasts. And all we're doing is like generating stuff on the internet. So if you want to build an intergalactic light-year scale AI computer system, you're gonna need entire planet-sized data centers fueled by insane amounts of energy, which has an insanely higher skill ceiling and difficulty level in terms of logistics. And now you're gonna have insane amounts of latency. You would have to build some sort of space networking technology to speed up networks, which again, still will only be going the speed of light. Or if it goes faster with wizard reverse math science, it will still never be fast in like relative to light years. And this problem creates insane amounts of latency. So this comes back to the point of, if this alien race really spent thousands of years terraforming planets into proxy maintenance and relay stations, or if they built out this insane light year scale AI architecture, and they were only 4 light years away, there is absolutely no way that humans wouldn't have noticed. Which comes back to the point of, if they really went through all this trouble, they better have a really fucking good reason to come here. So a more realistic argument to the zoo experiment with minimal fingerprint is to send AI probes to monitor. But remember, probes will have a hard time leaving solar system gravity wells and traversing over to another solar system. So those probes also need some significant levels of power and fuel to make it over here. Unless they get a lucky shot super fast meteor flying by their planet, and that meteor just so happens to be flying towards us. But NASA, SpaceX, and even hobbyists catch these objects all the time, like Oumuamua. It is very easy and obvious to detect fast flying objects in our direction for modern astronomers. And if the probe is communicating with their home planet, that will show up in radio scans we do 24/7 in space observatories. I guess fine, we could say like they're transmitting data in some insanely high-tech ethereal way that we can't pick up on. So in that case, fine, I guess you got me. The best we got is a probe watching us from afar at the edge of our solar system. This was our theoretical Proxima Centauri b alien scenario, where aliens came from 4 light years away, and as we can see, it would be insanely difficult to accomplish, and realistically it would be impossible that they came here unnoticed by most of the human population. Even if someone says they wiped our memory, it doesn't matter. You can look in a telescope and still easily find their infrastructure if they're only 4 light years away. It's safe to say, if aliens are here, they didn't come from Proxima Centauri b. So, Where did they come from? Let's take a look at popular theories. The Greys, Zeta Reticula abductors. It's said they are short, 3 to 4 feet tall, have gray skin, black eyes, and come from the Zeta Reticula star system, which is 39 light years away. Alright, we talked about the 4 light years scenario, right? And you know what? I think 4 light years scenario that we talked about, it could maybe be done. It could maybe, if you know what? Let's just say like it could work. But there's no fucking way something is getting here from 39 light years away without building insane AI robotics architecture like and thousands of terraformed planets along the way that are just teeming with life. Like, this project would have taken them tens of millions of years to accomplish, and they would have had to been traveling in space before dinosaurs existed. And in this case, humans would have so easily noticed this type of mass-scale civilization. Let's put that aside and pretend they are here. Let's just say they're here. Okay, let's put it all aside. The Greys are here, okay? What's their goal? They say their goal is they run abductions for medical experiments. They implant tracking devices. They are running hybridization programs to mix humans with Grey DNA. And they also say the Greys exchange tech with the US government for permission to abduct people. Alright, let's break this down. The medical experiments is the only sensible idea here. Of course, you came 39 light years and you found probably the first life in the universe other than you after terraforming thousands of planets and building out multi-deca light year architecture. Yeah, for sure you would be curious as hell. So I can accept that. Yeah, that's a good reason. I could get behind it. The second point, implanting tracking devices. They found Earth. They got here against all odds and against all the problems of getting here. You think they need a fucking tracking device to find a human on Earth? Even Israel can find a Hamas terrorist and surgically strike the specific room he's in, man. If Israel can find a terrorist in Gaza, aliens are gonna have no fucking problem, buddy. They don't need tracking devices. So, the other one, mixing humans with Grey DNA, well, I'm sure one of the millions of healthcare professionals worldwide would notice if humans had alien DNA. Or at least our evolutionary scientists would see there's something alien about humans that isn't of this world. But there isn't. But yeah, of course, if you believe in the Greys, you probably also deny evolution and you think medical people are paid off. And I'd be surprised if you weren't a flat earther as well. So, how come all the planets are round but ours is flat? It's fucking crazy how nature does that. Anyways, the last point where the Greys make deals with the US government to trade tech for people. You think an alien civilization that came 39 light years needs to make deals with the government for abduction approval? If they can, with some alien magic, cloak their entire civilization that spans across thousands of planets, that they can't come to Earth to abduct a few people unseen? So obviously they're not making deals with the US government. They don't have to fucking do that. So it's obvious the Greys aren't here. So our next contender is the reptilian lizard people, the Alpha Draconis. As many of the supporters saying they're from Alpha Draconis, which is a star system 200 to 300 light years away. Now, if you've made it this far in this video, you will instantly think, yeah, right, 4 light years is almost impossible, but hey, we could entertain it. 39 light years, you would need to colonize an eighth of the galaxy with thousands of planet-scale data centers and mining bases and thousands of terraformed planets. So if the Draconis are from 200 to 300 light years away, Their scale would be so massive that any person could look through a telescope at the night sky, and no matter where you'd look, you'd probably find some trace of their existence. If Draconis was here, they wouldn't be here because they specifically picked us. They'd be here just because they would be literally everywhere. And again, if their civilization is that high tech, and it's really true that they feed... Okay, they say their goal. So their goal is to feed on fear and negative energy. Like apparently that's like where they get their life from. They feed on fear and negative energy. And so they like to infiltrate mundane, dumb politics. Then they would just terraform all the planets in our solar system and like put life on it. They would be doing it on the moon, the Mars, Saturn, and it would be on a massive scale. Like if their source of energy is negative emotions and they had the tech to come here, they would have terraformed every planet to put life on it and to torture it, to harvest and farm as much fear as possible. If their goal is to feed off fear, then they're doing a really shitty fucking job. But that being said, it would take some impressively high skill level of government control and coordination and like a hive mind type mentality that every single one of their species all have the same goal and there aren't any outliers or activists that have different goals and values. That also being said, that government would have to maintain this project for the whole time it took from them to get here. If they came here from their home planet and not a proxy planet, the trek from 200 light years away would take them thousands of years to arrive. They will be like ancient remnants of their own civilization by the time they got here. This would be the equivalent to someone from the Sumerian times coming into a modern situation in 2025 and thinking his politics are still relevant to what's happening back home. So yeah, if the Alpha Draconis is real, it would be insanely obvious. So obviously the Alpha Draconis isn't here. Our next invaders are the Nordics or the Pleiadians from the Pleiades, which is 400 light years away. Apparently these tall, blonde, blue eyes humans, not all believers, and they look just like humans. So not all believers of these aliens are racist, but there are some insanely racist people who think this is where white people come from. No, I just want to make a disclaimer. I'm not left or woke. I'm not even really right. So I don't really care, but like this alien is obviously a cope created by people who refuse to believe that white people aren't from the same planet as other people. This alien is just a cope created by people who refuse to believe that white people are from the same planet as other people. Anyways, they also think Pleiadians came here to warn us about nukes, pollution, war, and they are kind of like the good cop aliens because, you know, they're white, protecting you against the greys, which aren't white, and like the weird lizard people. So it's like, this is literally pure space racism level. So these aliens exist alongside the Draconis and the Grey in the lore. So you would have to have not one, but 3 insanely massive intergalactic civilizations. So if you thought like maybe you wouldn't have noticed the Draconis and the Greys, now you also have a third one, and these guys aren't from 39 light years away. They're not from 200 light years away. These ones are 400 light years away, right? That means their scale is insanely bigger than the Draconis' scale. That means the Greys are like absolute cavemen compared to the Draconis. And the Draconis are like fucking insects compared to the Pleiadians. So if Pleiadians were really good cops, they could protect us from the Greys and the Draconis like a human protecting a car from an ant. So they should have zero problems protecting us. So they're not doing a very good job. So I'm sorry, the Nordics aren't here. Unless if we're talking about Norwegians, but I'm talking about the aliens. The next fighter is my favorite to talk about. The Anunnaki. The Anunnaki alien theory is probably the most brain-dead, lazy, science-illiterate alien conspiracy ever created. They say there's a secret planet of Nibiru that has a long orbit that swings by Earth once every few 100,000 years. The problem with this is anything planet size in our solar system that comes anywhere near Earth's orbit periodically would be very obvious in modern astronomy. We'd see its gravitational effects, IR emissions, occultations, and we've mapped our solar system incredibly well. We would have easily seen a planet like this by now. They say once every few thousand years, right? Or a few 100,000 years, I think. So let's be really generous and say they were last here like 400,000 years ago. Let's just say that, like really generous. Planets go nowhere near as fast as spaceships. The orbit speeds are slow, so unless they installed engines and rockets on the side of their planet to make it go faster, that planet would be maximum like 40 light years away. Meaning even hobbyists at home with like a $400 telescope from Amazon would be able to like find this planet. But you know, an official space observatory, without question that they wouldn't find this planet. But aside from science, it gets way more stupid when you ask, why did they come here? They believe the Anunnaki came to Earth to genetically engineer humans from primates to become a slave worker race to mine gold, because they need gold to power their atmosphere. Who came up with this? Zecharia Sitchin? If they needed gold for their atmosphere, or whatever, does Zecharia realize there is gold on many planets in space, and Earth doesn't have like nearly as much gold as other planets do? And we have done quite a pathetic job mining it. We barely mine any gold as a species. There isn't a single country on Earth that relies on gold for its primary industry. It's not even an export that humans really focus on. If gold was their priority, we would be a lot more of a gold-centered society. Also, if they had spaceships, why did they not provide humans with gold mining vehicles? Why would they not want the most return on their investment? Why did they wait like thousands of years for humans to like invent technology to mine stuff with? So, and gold isn't even in the top 20 materials or minerals that we mine as a planet. So they would be really pissed if they came back and we barely had fucking anything. Also, if their atmosphere relies on gold to be powered, how did their atmosphere survive such a long time away from us without the gold to power it? So if they need gold, and they had the technology to come to Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago to alter humans, then they would have already had the technology to mine gold on other planets with robotics, AI, and other planetary mining setups. So if they're going in this big, massive loop, we would see gold mining operation bases literally everywhere as a breadcrumb trail from Earth leading to their planet, which even more solidifies how easy it would be to find their planet. I could probably do an entire video on how absolutely brain dead this theory is. Obviously, they don't exist. So the next theory is from ancient alien TV shows talking about paleo contact, how they built the Stonehenge, Pyramid, and Easter Island. So again, the equivalent of Elon Musk traveling to a planet in another solar system, stacking a few rocks into a neat formation, and leaving to go home. So you're saying an alien race traveled light years to move a couple rocks around? The pyramids are impressive by ancient human standards, but for advanced alien civilizations, it's nothing. And it certainly doesn't justify such an insane journey. The motivation just doesn't add up. If aliens came here, we have to give them a lot of credit. It's not easy to do, and their government political diplomacy has to be utterly perfect to maintain like a go-to-Earth project to like stack rocks and do nothing else there. Like this has got to be like a thousands or if not tens and hundreds of thousands a year project. Their level of political strategies would be unmatched, not like short-sighted tit-for-tat policies that we have with humans on Earth. So if they didn't want to be seen, they wouldn't build buildings. If they did want to build buildings, they would have built something insanely impressive, like a refueling station that's super high tech for their spaceships, or like a massive city-sized super AI computer, or some sort of futuristic holographic art made of enchanted elite level materials that don't naturally form and humans at the modern level can't even fathom. Either they do nothing and avoid detection, or if they build something, they would build something either useful to them or to leave something to show off. There's no reason to come here from tens or hundreds of light years away to do nothing. There's no reason to do that. So there's the other theory of underground and undersea aliens. How all the aliens live here on Earth, but they're inside vast underground facilities. I mean, they obviously didn't come from space then, so they're not aliens, but I think this is a cope theory made up by people who have realized how absolutely ridiculous it is for aliens to get here from space unnoticed. So they think they're underground or underwater, that we wouldn't notice. They claim they have tech facilities, the Dulce Base Myth, which run labs, monitor nukes, and all this crazy super tech that's better than ours. Yeah. We would constantly and easily notice a highly advanced alien-like species under our ground from just like very basic everyday life. You think oil and gas companies, mining companies wouldn't pick up on massive big voids and structures? The weather network would pick up on unexplained heat sources and circulation anomalies. The airports would pick it up on it, and this would not go unnoticed by like a large amount of industries on Earth. Like militaries run global sonar networks to detect submarines and undersea activity. Oceanographers map the sea floor with multi-beam solar cables, and deep diving ROVs and autonomous vehicles would notice the stuff. You know, like you're watching this on YouTube, which means you have an internet connection. Do you know that there are internet cables all over the ocean floor being laid and maintained? We also have satellites that would pick up on unusual EM and IR noise. Hell, we even just have like commercial fishing fleets that would be like fishing up random alien artifacts and structures all the time. You think we wouldn't notice huge high-tech alien bases with massive energy use on our planet? That's all I have for this video. I feel like I glazed over topics and gave quite brief overviews of things. There were so many topics I could have rambled on about forever. There's endless side tangent rabbit holes. If I missed any big alien conspiracies, or if you want to do a collab, or if you want to debate me on this topic, be my guest. My contact information is in the description below. Thanks for watching.